Welcome to True.
The Invention of Money, How Ancient Lydia Changed the World Forever. Chapter 1. The Problem Before Coins. Imagine trying to buy bread with a cow. Sounds ridiculous, right? But that was everyday life for most of human history. Before coins existed, trade was brutally complicated. If you were a farmer who needed tools, you had to find a blacksmith who wanted your wheat. If the blacksmith didn't need wheat that day, you were out of luck. This system is called barter, and it dominated human commerce for thousands of years. The barter system had massive problems. First, you needed a double coincidence of wants. Both parties had to want exactly what the other person offered at exactly the same time. Second, how do you make change with a cow? You can't exactly give someone half a living animal. Third, storing wealth was nearly impossible. Your grain would rot, your animals would die, and your goods would deteriorate. Ancient civilizations tried different solutions. The Mesopotamians used barley as currency. The Chinese used cowrie shells. Pacific Islanders used giant stone discs. Romans paid their soldiers with salt, which is where we get the word salary. But all these systems had the same fundamental problems. They were heavy, perishable, or difficult to standardize. Some cultures moved to precious metals like gold and silver. This was better because metals don't rot, they're valuable everywhere, and you can divide them into smaller pieces. But even this created problems. Every time you wanted to buy something, you had to weigh the metal. Was this gold pure or mixed with cheaper metals? How much was this piece really worth? Merchants needed scales, and dishonest traders could easily cheat by using rigged weights or impure metals. Trade was slow, complicated, and full of opportunities for fraud. The ancient world desperately needed a better solution. That solution would come from an unlikely place, a small kingdom squeezed between massive empires, where rivers carried a special golden treasure. Chapter 2. The Kingdom of Lydia. In what is now Western Turkey, there existed a kingdom that most people today have never heard of. This was Lydia, a land of incredible wealth positioned at the crossroads of the ancient world. Lydia occupied a strategic position between the Greek city-states to the west and the massive Persian Empire to the east. Its capital city, Sardis, became one of the most important commercial centers of the ancient world. Merchants from across the Mediterranean and Asia passed through Lydian territory, creating a melting pot of cultures, languages, and trade goods. But Lydia's real advantage came from its geography. 3 rivers flowed through Lydian territory: the Pactolus, the Hermus, and the Cayster. These weren't ordinary rivers. Their waters carried flakes and nuggets of electrum, a naturally occurring mixture of gold and silver that washed down from the mountains. The Pactolus River became legendary. Ancient writers described its sands as glittering with gold. According to Greek mythology, King Midas washed away his golden touch in the Pactolus, which explained why the river contained so much precious metal. The reality was geological, not magical, but the wealth was very real. This natural wealth made Lydia rich, but it also created a unique problem. Electrum varied in its composition. One nugget might be 60% gold and 40% silver. Another might be 50-50. This inconsistency made trade difficult. How do you value something when its worth keeps changing? The Lydians were master merchants. They understood trade better than almost anyone in the ancient world. They saw the problems with weighing metal for every transaction. They witnessed the disputes over purity and value, and sometime around 630 BC, during the reign of King Alyats, they had a revolutionary idea. What if you could create pieces of metal with guaranteed weight and purity? What if the government stamped its seal on these pieces to certify their value? What if you could eliminate the need for scales and assayers in every single transaction? This simple idea would change human civilization forever. Chapter 3. The First Coins Are Born. The first coins didn't look like modern money. They were small, bean-shaped lumps of electrum with crude designs stamped on one side, but these irregular little objects represented one of humanity's greatest innovations. King Alyats ruled Lydia from approximately 610 to 560 BC. Under his reign, Lydian craftsmen began producing the world's first standardized coinage. They took electrum from the rivers, melted it down, and poured it into molds to create uniform pieces. Each piece was carefully weighed to match specific standards. Then came the crucial innovation, the stamp. Using a hammer and die, workers struck each piece of electrum with an official mark. The earliest Lydian coins featured simple designs, a lion's head, a lion and bull facing each other, or abstract patterns of lines and dots. These weren't meant to be beautiful, they were meant to be recognizable and difficult to counterfeit. The stamp served as a government guarantee. It told everyone that this piece of metal had been weighed, verified, and approved by the Lydian state. You didn't need to question its value or test its purity. The lion's head meant the king himself backed its worth. This was revolutionary for several reasons. First, it created trust. The government's reputation stood behind every coin. Cheating became much harder because counterfeiting the royal seal was a serious crime. Second, it standardized value. Everyone knew what a coin was worth without negotiation or weighing. Third, it accelerated trade. Transactions that once took minutes now took seconds. The Lydians created different denominations for different values. Larger, heavier coins for big purchases. Smaller coins for everyday transactions. This flexibility made the system practical for everyone from wealthy merchants to common laborers. But the electrum coins still had a problem. Since electrum is a natural mixture, its gold to silver ratio varied. A coin might be anywhere from 40 to 80% gold, with the rest being silver. This inconsistency limited the system's effectiveness. The solution would come from Alyaz's son, a man whose name became synonymous with wealth itself. Chapter 4. Croesus and the Gold Standard. King Croesus took the throne around 560 BC and ruled until 546 BC. He would become the most famous Lydian king, and perhaps the richest man in the ancient world. Even today, 26 centuries later, we say someone is as rich as Croesus. Croesus took his father's innovation and perfected it. He realized that electrum's varying composition created confusion, so he made a bold decision: separate the gold from the silver and create pure coins of each metal. This required advanced metallurgy. Lydian craftsmen developed techniques to separate gold and silver from electrum, using a process involving salt and heat. Once separated, they could create coins of pure gold and pure silver, each with consistent, reliable value. The new Croesus coins, named after the king, featured a lion and bull facing each other on one side. On the reverse was a simple punch mark showing where the hammer struck the die. These coins came in several denominations, with the gold stater as the standard unit and smaller fractions for everyday use. This was the world's first bimetallic currency system: gold coins for large transactions and storing wealth, silver coins for everyday purchases. The ratio between gold and silver was fixed, creating a stable, predictable monetary system. The impact was immediate and dramatic. Trade exploded in Lydia. Merchants from across the known world flocked to Sardis. The city became incredibly wealthy. Markets bustled with activity. Lydian coins spread throughout the Mediterranean and Middle East as traders recognized their reliability and convenience. Croesus used his wealth strategically. He made lavish donations to Greek temples, particularly at Delphi, where his generosity became legendary. These donations weren't just piety, they were public relations. They spread Lydia's reputation and encouraged more merchants to use Lydian currency. The Greeks were impressed and quickly saw the advantage of coined money. Within decades, Greek city-states began minting their own coins, each with distinctive local designs. Athens created coins with an owl, Corinth with the winged horse Pegasus, Aegina with a sea turtle. But they all followed the Lydian model: standardized weight, guaranteed purity, official stamp. Croesus seemed unstoppable. His kingdom was rich, his currency was spreading across the world, and his name was becoming legendary. But wealth alone couldn't protect him from the rising power to the east. Chapter 5. The Fall of Lydia and the Spread of Coinage. In 547 BC, Cyrus the Great of Persia set his sights on Lydia. Croesus consulted the oracle at Delphi, who told him that if he attacked Persia, a great empire would fall. Confident in his wealth and army, Croesus invaded Persian territory. The oracle was right. A great empire did fall. It was his own. Cyrus defeated Croesus and conquered Lydia in 546 BC. According to legend, Cyrus planned to burn Croesus alive, but was impressed by the king's dignity and wisdom. Instead, he made Croesus an advisor. Whether this story is true or not, one thing is certain: the Persians recognized the value of Lydian coinage. The Persian Empire adopted and spread the Lydian system throughout their vast territories. Persian darics, gold coins featuring the king as an archer, became the standard currency from India to Egypt. The daric was actually named after Darius the Great, but it was based entirely on Lydian innovations. Meanwhile, Greek city-states enthusiastically embraced coinage. Each polis minted its own coins with unique designs that became symbols of civic pride. Athenian owls became so trusted that they were accepted far beyond Athens's borders. Spartan coins were intentionally made of iron to discourage wealth accumulation, showing how different societies adapted coinage to their values. The Romans initially resisted coinage, preferring bronze bars called ius signatum, but by the 3rd century BC, they too adopted coined money, eventually creating one of history's most successful currency systems. Roman coins spread across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, carrying images of emperors and celebrating military victories. In the East, China developed coinage independently, creating distinctive bronze coins with square holes in the center. These could be strung together for easy counting and transport. Though different in appearance, Chinese coins served the same essential functions as Lydian coins: standardized value, official backing, and ease of trade. India also developed sophisticated coinage, with punch-marked coins appearing by the 6th century BC. These may have been inspired by contact with the Persian Empire, which had adopted the Lydian system. Within 2 centuries of Lydia's innovation, coined money had spread across most of the civilized world. The concept was so obviously superior to previous systems that nearly every major civilization adopted it. But Lydia's legacy extended beyond just creating coins. They had invented something more fundamental: the idea that governments could create and guarantee the value of money. This principle would shape economics and politics for millennia. Chapter 6: How Coins Transformed Civilization. The invention of coinage didn't just make trade easier, it fundamentally transformed human civilization in ways the Lydians could never have imagined. First, coins revolutionized commerce. Trade volume exploded because transactions became faster and simpler. A merchant could now carry tremendous wealth in a small purse instead of caravans of goods for barter. Market prices became more transparent and consistent. Specialized industries flourished because workers could be paid in standardized wages rather than goods. Second, coins enabled taxation and government expansion. Before coinage, governments collected taxes in grain, livestock, or labor. This was inefficient and difficult to manage. Coins allowed governments to collect, store, and spend wealth much more effectively. This enabled larger armies, bigger construction projects, and more complex bureaucracies. Third, coinage created new economic concepts. Interest rates became practical because you could calculate exact amounts. Loans and credit systems developed. Banking emerged as a profession. The Greeks and Romans developed sophisticated financial instruments that would be recognizable to modern economists. Fourth, coins became tools of propaganda and power. Rulers put their faces on coins, spreading their image across their realms. Military victories, religious messages, and political claims were stamped on currency, making every transaction a reminder of who held power. Roman emperors understood this brilliantly, using coins to communicate with their subjects across vast distances. Fifth, coinage changed social structures. A middle class of merchants and traders emerged, their wealth no longer tied to land ownership. Cities grew larger as commercial centers became more important than agricultural areas. Social mobility increased because wealth could be accumulated through trade rather than just inheritance. Sixth, money created new philosophical and ethical questions. Greek philosophers debated the nature of wealth and whether money corrupted virtue. Religious traditions developed complex rules about interest, debt, and charity. The relationship between material wealth and spiritual value became a central concern of human thought. The military implications were equally profound. Armies could now be paid in cash rather than plunder, making professional soldiers possible. Mercenaries became common. Wars could be financed through loans and taxation rather than just immediate resources. The scale and duration of conflicts increased dramatically. International trade reached unprecedented levels. Merchants could travel thousands of miles knowing their coins would be accepted. Trade routes expanded across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Cultural exchange accelerated. Ideas, technologies, and religions spread along the same paths as coined money. Even art and culture were transformed. Coins themselves became miniature artworks, with some of the finest engraving and design in the ancient world. The standardization of coin imagery meant symbols and icons spread widely, creating shared visual languages across cultures. But perhaps most importantly, coinage created the concept of an abstract economy. Wealth was no longer just physical goods, but became an abstract value that could be measured, stored, transferred, and manipulated. This abstraction would eventually lead to paper money, digital currency, and the complex financial systems that dominate modern life. All of this stemmed from those crude, bean-shaped lumps of electrum stamped with a lion's head in ancient Lydia. Chapter 7. The Legacy Today. When you pull coins from your pocket or check your bank balance on your phone, you're participating in a system that began in ancient Lydia 26 centuries ago. The fundamental principles established by the Lydians remain unchanged. Money is still backed by government authority. We still use standardized denominations. We still rely on official markings, whether a king's seal or a president's face, to guarantee value. The technology has evolved from stamped metal to printed paper to digital entries in computer databases, but the core concept is identical. Modern currency still serves the exact same functions the Lydians identified: medium of exchange, store of value, and unit of account. Every economic transaction, from buying coffee to international trade deals worth billions, operates on principles the Lydians would recognize. The phrase "rich as Croesus" survives in English and other languages, a testament to how deeply Lydian wealth impressed the ancient world. Croesus appears in histories, plays, and literature across millennia. His story has been told and retold as a lesson about wealth, power, and fate. Archaeological discoveries continue to illuminate Lydian history. Excavations at Sardis have uncovered workshops where ancient craftsmen produced coins. Museums around the world display Lydian electrum pieces, allowing us to hold artifacts that represent one of humanity's pivotal innovations. The site where Sardis once stood, near modern Sart in Turkey, is now an archaeological park. Visitors can walk through ruins of the ancient city and see where the first coins were minted. The Pactolus River still flows there, though its gold has long been exhausted. Central banks and economists study ancient monetary systems to understand how currencies succeed or fail. The Lydian model of government-backed standardized currency has proven remarkably durable. Alternative approaches, from medieval tally sticks to modern cryptocurrencies, either adopt similar principles or struggle with the same problems the Lydians solved. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and every national treasury operate on foundations laid in ancient Lydia. When governments debate monetary policy, mint new coins, or stabilize currencies, they're engaging with questions the Lydians first confronted. Even in our increasingly digital age, the symbolism of coins remains powerful. We still talk about the two sides of a coin, flipping a coin for decisions, and coined phrases. These metaphors persist because coins are deeply embedded in human thought and language. The move toward cashless societies and digital currencies represents the next evolution of Lydian innovation. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin attempt to create trustworthy money without government backing, but they still struggle with the same issues of standardization, trust, and value that coins solved. Whether they'll succeed or fail, they're responding to challenges the Lydians first addressed. Today's global economy, with its trillions of dollars flowing across borders every second, is the direct descendant of merchants in ancient Sardis, exchanging electrum coins for goods. The scale has changed beyond recognition, but the principle remains the same. Standardized, trusted, government-backed money makes complex economies possible. Chapter 8. Conclusion: The Power of a Simple Idea. The invention of coined money ranks among humanity's most important innovations, alongside writing, the wheel, and agriculture. Yet most people never think about who invented the money in their pockets, or where the concept came from. The Lydians saw a problem that had plagued humanity for millennia: how to conduct trade efficiently and fairly. Their solution was elegant in its simplicity: take valuable metal, standardize its weight and purity, stamp it with official approval, and let these small tokens represent value. This simple idea required sophisticated understanding of economics, metallurgy, government authority, and human psychology. It required a state strong enough to guarantee value and prevent counterfeiting. It required merchants willing to trust the system and spread it through trade networks. It required craftsmen skilled enough to produce consistent, recognizable coins. Lydia had all these elements come together at the right moment in history. Their position at the crossroads of civilizations exposed them to diverse trading systems and their problems. Their natural wealth in Electrum gave them the raw materials. Their strong government under Alyattes and Croesus provided the authority and vision to implement the system. The result changed the world. Within centuries, coined money spread across most of the known world. Trade flourished, economies grew more complex, governments became more powerful, social structures transformed, new philosophical questions emerged about wealth and value. The Lydian kingdom itself lasted less than 2 centuries before falling to Persia, but their innovation proved far more durable than their empire. The coins they invented 26 centuries ago continue to shape our world every single day. Next time you use money, in any form, remember the ancient craftsmen in Sardis stamping lion heads onto nuggets of electrum from the Pactolus River. Remember King Croesus, whose wealth became legendary and whose innovations spread across the world. Remember that every economic transaction, from the simplest purchase to the most complex financial instrument, is built on foundations laid in ancient Lydia. The Lydians gave humanity a tool that made civilization as we know it possible. They took a simple idea and changed the world forever. That's the true legacy of the world's first coins, and why the story of ancient Lydia deserves to be remembered alongside humanity's greatest achievements. From a small kingdom squeezed between empires to every wallet, bank account, and digital transaction on Earth, the Lydian innovation continues. The faces on the coins have changed, the metals have given way to paper and digital code, but the fundamental idea that small, standardized tokens backed by authority can represent value and enable trade remains as revolutionary today as it was when that first lion-stamped electrum piece left the Lydian mint. That's the power of a truly great idea. It doesn't just solve the problems of its time, it creates possibilities that echo across centuries, shaping the world in ways its inventors could never imagine. The Lydians created coins, but they gave humanity something even more valuable, the foundation of the modern economy and a system that would enable human civilization to flourish on an unprecedented scale.